It isn't only the ghoul, the vampire, the undead dead, the scream in the night, or similar shafts of fear selected from the quiver of horror that spellbind the listener and fascinate the casual turner on of a radio switch. In this tale, there is nothing outwardly ghostly. It is a story of unease, and we challenge you to make your radio set silent without listening all the way to Short Circuit.
Desolate.
Yes, Mr. Fussberger. Though, mind you, at this time of year, I mean, when spring comes and the trees are in
I
leaf.
prefer it desolate. Why do you imagine I bought 100 acres of ground on which to build a house?
Yes, of course, Mr. Fussberger.
I want desolation, privacy, and security. I can afford to get what I want. Well, let's take a look at the house.
And the two men, Mason and Fassberger, walked towards the building. The two men walked, each bent unknowingly upon his own individual journey beyond midnight.
The main structure was completed about 3 weeks ago. Since then, the engineers have been installing and testing the electrical circuits. The final tests were only made yesterday.
And the builders?
They were flown back to the continent immediately. The danger of information leaking out is, well, remote. Shall we go in, Mr. Fassberger? Now, to all intents and purposes, this lock is an ordinary lock with an ordinary key, Mr. Fassberger. Nobody would suspect that the tumblers are actuated by coded magnets in the key and that they, in turn, operate 6 electronic locks, which are built into the door and quite inaccessible. Laminated steel, you see, like the walls and floors. It'd stop an armor-piercing shell.
Good.
Now, switch the lights on. The whole ceiling glows, you see. Not just a globe or collection of globes. Exact to your specification. Naturally, it'll look better with furniture, and in about 9 months' time, when the decorations are completed...
Yes.
The windows are deceptive, aren't they? You'd never imagine there'd be space for steel shutters to glide across. And you see here, the glass is polarized. You can see out, but nobody can see in.
And all the windows are the same?
Exactly. The whole house was built as a precision engineering job. The moment someone tries to tamper with the windows or the outside doors, the whole of the engineering electronic gadgetry comes into play. The house is completely sealed off from the rest of the world.
A steel fortress. Fassberger's fortress. Impenetrable. Impregnable.
The main electricity supply for the whole house comes in here. That black box carries the power supply's fuses. But naturally, it's sealed, and only the company's electricians can open it. But every other room in the house is individually fused, so nothing can go wrong, you see. But now there is an emergency diesel generator in an outhouse at the back. So in the event of a power failure, you can generate your own electricity. We've thought of everything.
I hope so. The place is costing me nearly $250,000. I want perfection.
Oh, you're getting it. Now, if you'd care to go into the next room and watch the window, I'll just show you how rapidly and efficiently the steel shutters slide across. Then afterwards, I'll go outside and pretend to be a burglar.
Very well.
Fassberger stood by the horizontal window and fingered the edge of the steel frame with his podgy fingers. The big diamond ring in its flashy platinum setting glittered richly in the subdued daylight.
Ready?
Yes.
It happened so suddenly that his eyes were completely deceived. One minute there was a window looking out on bare, bleak countryside. Next instant the window had gone, and in its place was a sheet of blue-gray steel. Curiously, there was an agonizing pain in the middle of his right hand. Even more frightening, the hand suddenly seemed to have become immovably attached to the window frame.
Mason! Mason!
Coming, Mr. Fassberger. Train seems to have happened.
I think it's one of the fuses has blown up.
Open the shutter, man. Can't you see my hands caught in the thing? It's caught my ring. Might have lost my hand if it hadn't been for the diamond.
Oh, dear, yes, I'll go and...
This diamond's harder than steel. Blasted shutter might have chopped my hand off.
I can't open the shutter until I get a new fuse, Mr. Fassberger. It's the fuse.
Oh.
The new fuse is blown too. It's because the shutter's jammed. The drive motor's taking too much current.
No.
It's a virtual short circuit on the power line.
Well, do something about it. Don't just stand there talking blasted technical rubbish.
Can't you take your finger out?
If I could take it out, why do you think... Oh.
It's just unfortunate that shutter is edged with a special alloy that'll cut through anything. If someone tried to smash through the window with a steel bar, the shutter would cut the thing in half. The diamond's too hard. A fraction of an inch either way, and there'd have been no trouble.
A fraction of an inch either way, and I'd have lost my blasted finger.
That wouldn't have blown the fuse. It's the diamonds causing the trouble. The drive motor's come to a standstill. It may even be burning at this moment.
Mason, I don't care.
The fuse is only rated for 5 amps, you see.
Then put in a bigger fuse.
It might work. One could only open the shutter of a fraction of an inch, perhaps.
Oh. Oh.
15 amps. That'll... No good. That's blown too.
Or try 30 amps or more. Oh.
Stand by. I put a dead short across the fuse. This ought to produce results. The light's gone.
All the lights gone.
I am, Mr. Mason, supremely aware that there is no light.
The company's fuses are blown. This really is a short circuit.
Then telephone the power company. Tell them to send their electricians here immediately. Tell them it's urgent.
That's impossible, Mr. Fassberger. The telephone isn't connected yet.
Well, in that case, you'd better take my car. Drive to the nearest town. Bring back electricians, engineers, fire brigade, anyone you like. But let's have some action. Don't you realize that I'm in dreadful pain?
I can't get out of the house. There isn't any power to operate the doors and windows. We're sealed in, Mr. Fassberger.
Then start the diesel engine.
The diesel's outside. Unless I can open a door, I can't reach it.
Tell me, Mason, what do you propose to do? I asked you to build a house that couldn't be broken into. Not one it's impossible to escape from.
I suppose the only thing to do is to try and force open the power company's fuse box. The point is that I haven't got any tools. The fuse box is sealed, and you have to have a special star-shaped screwdriver. All I've got is a pipe scraper and a bunch of keys.
Feel in my right-hand trouser pocket. You will find a key ring with a small gold penknife attached.
Yes, I'll need light, too. It's practically dark here. It'll be completely black back there.
In my coat pocket, there is a gold cigarette lighter. You may use it.
Yes, Right then, I'll do what I can.
Do what you can.
After several hours, when the strip of sky visible through the gap in the shutter was beginning to darken into night, it became obvious that Mason was achieving exactly nothing.
It's no use, Mr. Fussberger. I can't make any impression at all on those screws. Not without the proper tools.
So, what are we going to do?
I don't know. I don't know at all.
I can't stand here all night like this. This ring's almost cutting through the bone of my finger. In fact, my finger feels quite dead already.
Do you suppose...
Suppose what?
Well, it might be possible to cut through the ring. That would release your finger.
But the ring's platinum. You can't cut platinum with gold.
I could try.
Very well. Try.
No good. Perhaps if the diamond could be prized from its setting.
Might be difficult. The diamond alone cost 2,000 pounds, and it was made with exceptionally strong claws to hold it. I wouldn't want to risk losing it.
No, of course not.
You can try.
There is one point. There's a danger of dislodging the stone if I succeed in opening the claws.
Danger? What of?
Look, Mr. Fussberger, the house is completely sealed. If I should dislodge the diamond, when I release your finger, the shutter would close and we'd lose even the quarter of an inch we have got. The house would become our tomb.
It's already that, as far as I'm concerned.
But we still have got the gap. Sooner or later we'll be missed and people will come for us.
Huh? What do you mean, sooner or later?
2 days, perhaps 3. The people will miss me.
Nobody will miss me, Mason. I'm a lonely man. Always have been.
In that case, it wouldn't really matter if you were to die here in this house.
No, it really wouldn't matter.
Then what I don't understand is why build the house in the first place? With concealed safe deposits and all those elaborate security precautions.
I have an instinct for certain things, Mason. And I know that the world's on the brink of what will be the worst economic crisis in history. Currency will lose all its value. Gold would be worthwhile investment if one could buy gold. But I've settled for precious stones. I've sunk nearly all I've got into diamonds, natural sapphires, and emeralds. 4 million pounds worth. When the crisis comes, these stones will not lose their value. They will increase. There isn't a bank in the country I would trust. So, I have built my own bank. My fortress.
You're shrewd. Very shrewd. But what are you going to do about your finger?
I'd give 10% of all I have to the man who can solve this predicament.
You mean that? 10%?
5%.
4 million, that's 200,000. Can I rely on your word?
Of course. But I reserve the right to revise my offer as the situation develops. But every day, I'll reduce it by 1%.
You mean after 5 days I get nothing?
After 5 days, we'll both be dead.
That night passed, and much of the next morning, too. It's not easy to sleep, standing up, finger going.
Dead. Mason.
You can't stand there through today and perhaps tomorrow like that with a dead finger. It'll have to come off. One of us will have to... Well, you see, Mr. Fassberger.
All right. You'll have to use a small gold penknife.
It's blunt.
It's all we have.
Mr. Fassberger, I couldn't.
In that case, give me the penknife.
I can't let...
Mason, it's my blasted finger. If I want to cut it off, I'll blast it, will cut it off. Give me that knife.
Here.
I'm free. I can move around. I'm more than halfway towards solving the entire problem.
Yes. Yes, indeed, you are.
It's only a matter of time, Mason. Only a matter of time.
On the 8th day, Mason died. Fassberger, when he could bring himself to move from the corner in which he lay, hour after hour, day after day, watched for a sign of human life through the quarter-inch gap, his one contact with the world. Fassberger's hunger and thirst became obsessive. His hand was swollen, festering from some obscure infection. His tongue cracked along its surface. The 9th day dawned, with monstrous dreams of food and drink. Yes, of course, Fassberger had thoughts of cannibalism. After all, nothing could hurt Mason anymore. But the millionaire dismissed the idea as soon as it entered his mind. Life, yes, but not on those terms. The 9th day passed. Fassberger, managing to mentally elbow thoughts of food and cool, clear water aside, pondered for a few lone seconds on the absence of any will. And then big pictures of venison and wine crowded back. And Fassberger, aware of little except late evening filtered sunlight, like a rod through the quarter-inch crack in the shutters, prepared to die. And then, suddenly... Just like that. Lifeboat at sea, arrival of the cavalry. Nick of time, miracle, save. Life and limb hanging by single thread. Just like that.
Will you have another sherry, Mr. Fassberger?
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
I'm so glad I decided on a private funeral. Poor Harold would have hated the relations to have been there, especially his mother. He never got on with his mother. Isn't that strange? Mother and son. And yet with Harold... Oh, well.
Thank you. I would like to give you something, Mrs. Mason. Your late husband and I entered into an agreement. It concerns a sum of money. 200,000 pounds, to be precise. Oh, I have decided to sell the electronic house, Mabel.
Have you, Julius?
Yes. I have acquired a new sense of values. I sought security only to find insecurity and danger. My plans didn't really work.
Life is not an investment, Julius. You can't really live in terms of profit and loss. In the long run, life is people just like you and me.
Yes, quite. So I shall sell it.
Don't think me a ghoul, but may I see it? The house, I mean, before you...
Oh, I don't think I could.
Just one small visit, a short one. I feel maybe Please.
Very well. The lawyers were prompt and thorough. The money, everything is satisfactory.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Julius.
That's about all there is to it. Of course, I don't expect a lady to fully grasp the intricacies of...
Oh, but I do. I understand perfectly. It really is a work of art.
But it has painful memories for you, so I
Yes,
think...
of course. Oh, Julius, I forgot. I want you to have this. Please don't open it now. Later.
Hmm? Thank you. What is...
Later. When you're alone.
Oh, yes. All right. Well, I'll just close the shutters. You know, despite what happened here, despite the fact... Maybe? Let's go now. Mabel, where are you? I think we'll leave now. One has enjoyed the usefulness of two hands for more than 40 years. Getting familiar with one hand. What? Mabel! Mabel, where are you? Mabel! Hello, Mabel, please, what's the meaning of this? It's idiocy! You locked me in, why? Come, Fassberger. It's an accident. Something's wrong, that's all. An explosion. What's she done to the current? It's blown fuse, everything. I'm shut in. Mabel! Why has she done this? How? That letter, the one she gave me. I can't see light. I don't believe it.
When you read this, Mr. Fassberger, you will, if all goes well, be standing alone in your electronic monstrosity, the house which became my husband's tomb. Always supposing I have managed by the time you read this to seal you in the house and cut off the power. I shall return in perhaps 3 weeks. Oh, I have a strong stomach, believe me. I shall destroy the letter you are reading now. Wherever you decide to hide it as evidence, I shall find it. You see, I loved poor Harold, and I hold you responsible for his death. Therefore, I think it is only fair that you should share his fate. And, after all, no one will miss you, will they? Thank you for the £200,000. Goodbye. Mabel Mason.
No. No.
Beyond Midnight is presented every Friday night at 9:30 by Biotex, the new soak and pre-wash powder. The program is adapted for broadcasting and produced by Michael McCabe.
It's 9:30.
The Flying Scotsman was 2 hours late. That used to happen frequently during the war, especially when the Heinkels had been over during the night. The train was blacked out. The lights were dim. I was sharing a compartment with another officer, a major of about 35. He was reading The Idiot. He smoked continuously. We spoke hardly at all. Just a word or two now and again. Above each of our seats was a notice which stated, "Idle chatter helps Hitler." But that wasn't why our conversation was so sporadic. We just had no curiosity about one another, that's all. I was going to Edinburgh, where my sister kept house for me. Perfect bore carrying these blasted gas masks around, isn't it? I had just endured 9 hours in a crowded troopship. For all I knew then, he might have undergone a similar experience. He said not another word for more than an hour. My watch showed me it was beyond midnight.
Biotex, the new soak and pre-wash powder, presents Beyond Midnight by Michael McCabe.
I received a letter from Mrs. Bookfights of Spoon Street, Lakeside, Cape Town during the week, and she wrote to me about Biotex. She said my daughter's gym tunic was very badly stained, with the result she would not wear it. I decided to try Biotex, which you advertised, and I soaked the garment for a few hours, and much to my amazement, the stains disappeared. I've spoken about this product to my friends who are now using Biotex, and I'd like to say a big thank you for making this product available to us. Well, as I've been saying for a little while, Mrs. Bookfights and you other ladies, Biotex is absolutely marvelous when it comes to helping get rid of those very stubborn stains. I've kept on emphasizing that you let soaking do your washing, and you will notice that these stains just vanish by using Biotex merely by soaking overnight or for a couple of hours in warm water or pre-washing in your washing machine. It is spelt Biotex.
We're stopping. signals, I suppose. This'll make us later than ever. Where are we?
Heaven knows, the end of the world. Yes, I think it is the end of the world. I recognize it. Doncaster, I think. Should be 80 miles.
You've lost 70 or 80 miles then. Rough, isn't it, catching a train that's half a day late when you've only got 2 weeks' leave?
Been overseas?
Singapore.
Tough.
My regiment had retreated for 4 months through the Malayan jungle, only to be practically annihilated at the docks at Singapore. I was the only officer left alive. But one didn't talk shop in those days, so we said no more about the war.
Seen any good shows in London?
Vatican's play wasn't bad.
Then I came off months ago.
Did it? Time passes.
Does it? Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, time drags on a train.
I think we both went to sleep then. I remember I dreamt of cups of tea. It seemed so long since I'd had a cup of hot tea.
We just passed through Peebles. We should be in about half an hour.
Do you live in Edinburgh, too?
No. But I used to. That's why I'm going there.
You mean you live just outside the city?
No. No, I don't live anywhere now.
War's a ruddy bore. Right up roots, chaps. If you know where to stay in Edinburgh, my sister and I would be awfully pleased to put you up.
Oh, thanks very much. I should be glad of your hospitality for a night or two.
Of course, your wife...
No. I'm alone. I'm not married.
Angela was waiting for me at Edinburgh. She was wearing a rather chic hat, and the severity of her tweeds contradicted it somehow. Everything about Angela was a compromise. Her looks were striking. She wished to be the centre of attraction, and yet she dressed so demurely that you would pass her without a second glance. She always had good legs, and yet the heavy brogue she always wore ruined the effects of the sheerest silk stockings. Her eyes were pretty, so was her mouth, but her chin was too heavy. Nature seemed to have thought of it over her, I always thought. She always had a good chest, but it seemed to embarrass her, because she was always determined to flatten it like they used to in the 20s. She never quite succeeded here, though. Nature fought back. Major Buckle noticed her at once. Couldn't take his eyes off her.
Annie! Oh, Annie! Oh, darling, how good to see you.
This is Major Buckle, Major Peter Buckle. I've invited him to stay a little while with us.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello.
By the time we reached the ticket barrier, I knew that Buckle wanted to get a lot closer to Angela, my sister, than the 2.5 feet apart from your handshake. I remember thinking vaguely that it would be nice if they could get together, perhaps. Angela had only had me to look after for such a long time, but I didn't dwell on this. It was wartime, and you don't think very seriously about anything in the future. Not in wartime. But it is very strange to think back to the events of those days. The events and their fantastic conclusion. If only I'd had the slightest idea of what was to happen, I could have spoken to Buckle, perhaps. But I'm jumping the gun. The next few days, after the arrival at Edinburgh, were, I think, the happiest in Angela's life.
Breakfast, Alex, darling.
No.
You sleep well? Morning, Peter. Sleep well?
Like a top.
Breakfast. Eggs 3.5. Just like you said. I nearly got them mixed up with Alex's. He's a 4-minute man. I'll just hop into the bath while you eat.
Want me to scrub your back?
Today, we'll have a picnic. Oh, it's lovely having 2 men to fuss over. It's jolly well right that they should have breakfast in bed. Poor darling's leave is so short. Oh, I haven't felt so useful since Father died.
Her cheeks shone, her hair took on a luster I'd never seen before. She was up at dawn each day, ironing shirts, making sandwiches. The presence of a guest in the house gave her an excuse for any luxury she planned. Picnics, fresh fruit salads. War, you'd never have thought there was a war. To Angela, there was no war.
I'll sling this sponge at you, Alex, if you winch your razor in my bath. It's a filthy trick. Oh!
Butter, what about
do? Love hot water. Alex, no!
Always rinse the razor in the bath. Habits, mustn't break habits. It's more time.
Alex, do you like him?
Immensely.
We seem to get on so well together. I can hardly believe that you only met him on a train 3 days ago. But he's so reticent. I hardly know a thing about him.
You need to?
No, not if you like it.
We passed the next few days very idly, without plan or purpose. Picnics during the day, pub calls in the evenings. I explained the plot of the play I was going to write, and Angela, after 2 whiskeys, said it was brilliant. We were very happy. Peter Buckle didn't talk much. He seemed to have attached himself to me, listened attentively, sometimes embarrassingly, to all I had to say. Because of Angela's fondness for me, she naturally became very warm towards Peter. I don't think he attracted her physically. He was too vague, nebulous, and undefined a person for her to have any feelings as precise as that. But I noticed on the 4th night, when Angela kissed me goodnight, she kissed Buckle as well, since he happened to be sitting beside me. By the end of the fortnight, there seemed to be some sort of understanding between them. It wasn't love. It looked dangerously like the imminence of marriage, though.
Oh, what a crush. Oh, dear.
Listen. Gun. You know, met a chap the other day who believes this war will go on till 1950. And then it's going to end in a stalemate.
And it'll all have been an awful waste of time then, won't it? Oh, look. Poor Alex. Asleep already.
Ah. Well, that's a good idea.
Oh, yes, isn't it?
Angela. Will you marry me?
Yes, all right. You want me to?
Thanks.
It's an awfully funny place to propose, isn't it? Lying down in a tube station.
Yes, I suppose it is, really.
Most pretenders to do is lying down. The English are awful prudes, but once they're horizontal, they're very daring. I mean, look at them in parks and that. Oh, yes, it would be nice to be married. When shall we do it?
When? Oh, nearly. In a couple of days.
They were joined in holy wedlock 2 days later by special license at Caxton Hall. I gave her away, and Buckle received her. We were both slightly hilarious and a little drunk. Only Angela was serious or sober. And now, the whole thing moved swiftly towards its odd, and I must admit, rather frightening climax.
The new car wax with the detergent-proof formula won't wash off. It's detergent-resistant. Rally gives sure wax protection that's deep and long-lasting. And the finish is fast, very fast. Johnson's Rally Car Wax in liquid or paste form.
Soak, soak, that's all you have to do. Soak, soak, just for an hour to use. Fine, it's just as good as new when you use new Biotex.
Amazing new Biotex acts with a biological action to soak out the stubbornest stains and loosen dirt. New Biotex is great for all textiles and synthetics, whites and colors. It contains no bleach. Get amazing new Biotex today and let soaking do the washing.
Have a jolly nice honeymoon. Send me a postcard from Brighton, won't you?
Oh, Peter, couldn't Alex come too?
Yes, why not? Come on, Alex. But I've only got a back full of sick. Well, never mind. We'll pick that up later.
And that was that. I went with them to Brighton on their honeymoon. And we took one double room and one single room at, I forget the hotel. That first morning I didn't bother to get up. I lay in bed reading until, must have been 8:30. Angela knocked on my door.
Hello, yes?
Hello?
Oh, hello, Angie. Have a good... You're up bright and early.
I thought Peter would be here.
Here?
Oh, chatting to you or something.
No. What?
He must have got up ever so early. I've already had breakfast. I took a walk down to the beach. I thought he might have gone for a swim or something. He's not down there.
Yeah. Well...
Hey, I had an awfully funny dream in the night.
Did you?
You want to hear about it?
Yes, I'd love to.
Got a fag? Oh, Tar. You?
No, I haven't cleaned my teeth yet.
I know. I can smell your breath. It's all pale and pongy. Oh, my husband's gone. Anyway, in this dream, I'd been out hunting. But instead of riding a horse, I was sitting astride a giraffe. We'd been galloping quite out of control through this forest, and every tree was on fire. Isn't that funny?
Yes.
I wonder where he is. Where could he have gone?
Probably for a walk.
See you in the dining room.
But you've had breakfast, haven't you?
Yes. I think I have some more there. I wonder how hungry it makes me. Dreaming.
The hotel porter hadn't seen Major Buckle. The dining room staff didn't know where he'd gone to either. We went down onto the beach and had a look for him among the early bathers sporting themselves in and out of the waves. He wasn't there. Wasn't anywhere, it seemed. We went back to the hotel. It was getting very late by now. The porter again said he hadn't seen Peter. Said it in a very reassuring way, as if he took it for granted that Angela didn't want to see her husband. That fool of a porter thinks we're having an affair. You're afraid your husband will come and catch us red-handed. I'm sorry. I thought that might have amused you. Where the devil can he be?
There's no note or anything. No message.
Maybe he's been called up to London by the War Office or something. Urgent business. This sort of thing happens every day. Chap in our regiment got called off on some secret mission first day of his leave.
Phoned?
Well, maybe he did when we were out.
Well, then there'd have been a message.
Well, we'll wait till lunchtime, then I'll phone the club. If he got up very early and got the first train, he'll be in London easily by now. He's sure to lunch at the club. Hang on a bit. Let's go have some coffee.
All right, Alex.
I phoned the club, and when I came out of the kiosk, I shook my head, and Angela went to pack. She was now very worried. So was I, but with more reason. I didn't tell her that when I inquired after her husband, the secretary of the club had blandly replied that Buckle was dead. Of course, I made up my mind at the time that there just had to be two members with the same name. But all the same, it was a shock, I can tell you.
Captain McLean. Thank you, Corporal. They rang from downstairs. Told me you were coming up to see me.
It's good of you to meet us, Colonel Hutchinson. This is my sister, Angela.
Very good.
Oh, how do you do?
Very well, thanks. Thank you.
Yes, we felt we had to come to the War Office.
Do sit down, please.
Thank you.
You see, sir, if Major Buckle's been recalled to his unit or dispatched on some mission, I really think it's only fair that his wife should be told, especially in these circumstances.
What circumstances?
Well,
we were on our honeymoon. We were only married yesterday afternoon.
You did say Major Peter Buckle of the Black Watch.
Yes, sir.
Bring me a list of the Black Watch. Well, we'll clear this up, I hope. Cigarette, would you?
No,
Not
thank
for
you.
me, thank you, Colonel.
Don't mind if I do.
No, of course not, sir.
Drags on, doesn't it? You're on leave, I take it, Captain?
Yes, sir. Drags on. Oh, the war, yes. Well, economics, you know. That's what historians tell us.
They're wrong, the historians. Wars are not caused by economics. Not at all. Economics is their excuse. Excuse for war. The reason for war is that it destroys what we want destroyed. The status quo with which we identify our own inhibitions. War alone releases our personal relationships. It's not a necessary evil, but a necessary pleasure. Well, yes. If we were honest, we would admit that all the horror, all the slaughter, the cruelty, suffering which war entails remain for us merely regrettable statistics. What means something to us is that war provides us with that sense of insecurity which is life, when peace is seen as respectable and as dull as death.
Well, surely there are other ways. I mean, so?
Oh, yes, there are other ways. It's true that a drunken orgy might provide a similar release. It is rather difficult to remain drunk for several years. More, though, we can indulge ourselves without guilt. Indeed, our excuses become duties, and any behavior is condoned under the blanket of a great sacrifice, which we curse publicly, but enjoy privately. Oh, thank you. Yes, national disasters can be borne with comfortable fortitude. It's personal sorrow, not grief for another, but a lack in our own life which is so unbearable. It's a burden we would put down, though 1 million men fall with it. Huh? Oh, yes.
I don't know what to do. I mean, once your leave's over, Alex, it's going to be so ridiculous. I mean, I don't feel as if I've got a husband.
Wherever he is, he'll write I'll go. Please don't. How about I sing
you? I will now.
Yes. Yes, I thought it was unlikely. There was just a chance that there were two officers of the same name and rank in the same regiment. As I said, there must be some mistake. Major Buckle was blown to pieces before my eyes 6 months ago.
Impossible.
A mine exploded under his car. Very little was left of Buckle, but quite enough to identify him. The man whom you married yesterday must have been an imposter, masquerading as Major Buckle.
No, I'm sure he was genuine. I'd have spotted it if he wasn't.
I'm sorry, Captain, but I doubt it. There are plenty of these people who pass themselves off as officers these days. You must trace this Major Buckle of yours. Intelligence will want to question him. I suppose you've got a photograph of him. Did he look remotely like this?
Yes, that's Peter.
That's impossible, I'm afraid, madam. If you've a photograph of your husband, you can compare it with this one. I'm sure you'll see that the likeness is only enough to justify the impostor in his attempt. Have you such a photograph?
No, Yes.
Yes, of course. We took several snaps on the
I took
picnic.
quite a few of Alex, my brother, and Peter on a picnic just outside Edinburgh.
A couple of weeks ago. But the film isn't developed yet. I've got it with me, as a matter of fact. Carried around all this time. I've been meaning to get...
I think we'd better have it developed here.
I gave the film to the Colonel, and then Angela and I went to a canteen for a cup of tea while they developed the photos. When we returned, the Colonel looked strangely embarrassed.
Yes, very nice, these snaps. Your brother looks quite a film star.
Let me see.
And Angela stared at the prints, and then looked at me. I looked, too, at the photos. There were 6 photographs of me. But there was no trace of any figure, however dim, standing beside me.
I came into possession of the Lansford house through the accident of my uncle's death. My inheritance from him enabled me to buy it, for it was the isolated kind of dwelling I'd been looking for in order to finish a novel I was working on. I've always found it impossible to create anything worthwhile in the noise of the city. The house was fully furnished, but since it had been empty for many years, it was extremely dusty, and I spent my first day cleaning away the dust in the few rooms I intended to use. Lansford House. I remember the place as if it were only yesterday I discovered the green vase, learnt its terrible secret, and passed so nearly through the veil that separates sanity and the madness that lies beyond midnight.
Biotex, the new soap and pre-wash powder, presents Beyond Midnight by Michael McCabe.
Lansford House. The agent hadn't been enthusiastic. I got the impression that he didn't much care whether he sold me the place or not.
There's nothing extraordinary about Lansford House, Mr. Royd. It's very big, of course. It was splendid built and big in those days. If it wasn't so strongly built, it would have fallen to pieces years ago. A house needs to be cared for. Leave it empty.
Well, it's what I'm looking for. Nicely back from the road, surrounded by trees.
A lot of trees, yes.
Fields, pastures. It's hard to find somewhere without any close neighbors these days.
Oh, I can show you others. There's a place in...
Mr. Feltham, I want to buy Lansford.
You do?
I do.
Well, then. Nothing else, I suppose.
No.
Right. You, write books, you say?
I write books, yes. When can I take possession?
Today.
Oh, marvelous. I'm halfway through a book at the moment, you see. I've been stuck for weeks. I need peace now. Quiet. No.
For 5 days after moving in, I worked from 5 in the morning right through the day until it was dark. The book progressed beautifully. I was even thinking of who the film rights should go to when I hit another dull patch. Nothing. I destroyed a few thousand words and left the typewriter until a possible return of inspiration. I was fairly satisfied, though, and it was with a lot of pleasure that I began to examine more carefully the house I'd so quickly and perhaps rashly bought. In most ways, it was typical of the houses erected in the country 100 years ago. It needed a lot of money spent on it before it would assume the splendor it deserved, but I needed only 1 or 2 rooms. One thing puzzled me. The little attic. Locked. No key. Why is that then? Of course, I want to know what's in there now. Give that agent a ring. Treasure? Fat chance. Wonder why this door should be locked when all the others are open. I started to rearrange the kitchen the next day. I knew instinctively that no good would come of hammering the typewriter. The place was in a terrible state. I cleaned out some cupboards, did a bit of inexpert scrubbing, and then, while I was reaching up to hook a number of miscellaneous objects out of a sort of old-fashioned tall boy thing in a corner, I accidentally knocked off a shelf a canister. It opened, and a piece of folded paper fell out. An old piece of paper, brown with age, badly worn and tattered. There was writing on the paper. It was barely legible. The ink had faded badly, and large sections of the script had been worn or torn away. It was dated over 30 years before, and all that remained of the entire first paragraph beneath the date was Stephen Lansford, a young man of 25. And that was all the first paragraph said. Thereafter occurred a puzzling sequence of half lines, sentences, paragraphs, in this order. To have him tutored in the arts, particularly gifted in pottery making. Stephen developed a great fondness for his tutor, and under his guidance did the only constructive work of his life. A crude, ugly vase, bilious green in color. Stephen was proud of it. Kept it on the center of a small table in the living room. Dismissed. Stephen raged for days, and there began a subtle deterioration of a character which had always heretofore been shy and retiring. Ugly metamorphosis, kind of madness in the course of which he would never allow his vase to be moved. Made his mother promise
that it would never be moved under pain of dire punishment, but left to stand where he had put it. Some strange elemental bond seemed to have developed between the young man and his creation. After Stephen's death, Mrs. Lansford was unable to bear the thought of... Instead, she had the casket sealed, obtained permission from the authorities, and in the attic. Thereafter, rigid adherence to her promise. Stipulation in her will adjuring all future occupants not to move the vase. When a relative came to live in the house after her death, body torn, rent apart, found beside the table. I will, I know, eventually lift the vase.
And that's all. I couldn't make a lot of sense out of it, I must admit. I tried to read, to make out the bits that had faded, but it wasn't possible. On the end of the whole thing was a signature. Matthew Hargrove. Suddenly I remembered seeing, in the living room, which I hadn't had time to clean, a small table pushed over against the wall with a cloth covering an object of some bulk. That would be it, all right. See what they meant in their letter thing. It is crude. Ugly as sin. Matthew Hargrove. Wonder who he was. Or is. There was nothing in Uncle's papers about anyone of that name. Matthew Hargrove.
Matthew Hargrove. Matthew Hargrove. Are you the young chap that bought the Lansford place?
Yes, I expect to be a regular customer here.
People don't talk much about what happened to that Hargrove man. Used to be Mrs. Lansford's lawyer. Wrote up the old woman's will. Oh, queer that was. All about some vase thing her son made. Funny things went on after she died, you see. You want anything more than the razor blades, do you?
What funny things?
Well, there was Reuben Yates. That was her cousin. Came down when she got sick and stayed. You're from the town, aren't you? You don't get to hear about things like we do down here in the country, you see.
What happened to Reuben Yates?
Reuben Yates. Ah, well, they found him next to that table with the vase on it. Said he was torn apart.
I see. And where does Matthew Hargrove come in?
Oh, right after. He was the next one to move into the house. And he was the next one found by the table, too. Same as Reuben Yates. People say that they that saw him got sick in their stomachs for weeks afterwards.
And then?
No more. Nobody else moved into that house. From then till the day you moved in, nobody. Nobody at all.
The inference behind Mrs. Calkins, the lady in the village shop's words, added to those in the fragmented letter, began to take a kind of nagging form in my thoughts. For the rest of that day, I tried to write. I couldn't. No city noises. But there was another distraction now. The vase, and the strange story behind it. The living room drew me, and I went in. I looked at the ugly thing for a long, long time, and then I stretched out my hand to lift it. Suddenly I remembered Reuben Yates and Matthew Hargrove. Come on, Lloyd. Stop me. But even so, I only lifted the thing a quarter of an inch from the little table. It was about 10 seconds later that I heard it.
replaced the vase. How can I describe it? I don't know where it came from. Somewhere in the house. Somewhere, to be sure. It reminded me of nothing I'd ever heard in the whole of my life before. Silence followed. A deep, deep silence. Then I tilted the vase again. This time the reaction was instantaneous. I went and got a brandy and sat down for a while to recover my composure. It was then that I remembered the attic. It took me a long time to summon up the courage, but I had to know. I went back and quickly slipped a penny under the vase on the table. Then I ran upstairs. I got down on my hands and knees and tried to peer through the keyhole. I couldn't see anything. As I was struggling to my feet, I felt a thin current of air cross my face. A short, warm draft of air. But there was no attic window through which the wind could enter, and the air that struck my face was warm. I bent down again, and this time I put my ear to the keyhole. I felt it again, coming out of the keyhole. Not a draft. Not a draft at all. What I felt was breathing.
Keep Airwick handy in your home. Airwick is the modern air freshener. It doesn't just mask smells with heavy scent, it actually knocks them right out of the air. Airwick keeps the home sweet, with a country fresh atmosphere in every room. Put Airwick on your shopping list. It comes in economical bottle or up-to-the-minute aerosol. Get Airwick.
Soak, soak, that's all you have to do. Soak, soak, just for an hour or two you'll find this soap as good as new when you use new Biotech.
Amazing new Biotech soap stubborn stains away.
Clean, clean, everything soon will be clean, clean, for all the world to see. Soak, soak, stains away easily when you use new Biotech.
Get amazing new Biotech today and let soaking do the washing.
Why I did it, I don't know. Even then, something told me I was meddling in things I could never hope to understand. There was something in the house I knew then that could bathe me in the fires of purgatory forever and a day. But I came down the stairs and placed 2 more coins under the vase, tilting it further. I immediately returned to the attic door. I no longer heard mere breathing through that keyhole from the room beyond. I did not wait long. Something was trying to get out. I removed the coins again from under the vase, and it once more rested as it had done so for 30 years. All next day, the memory of that experience preyed on me. I couldn't work. I could hardly bear to be alone. The vase exercised an unholy fascination on me. I was in desperate need of company, and that's why I wrote an invitation to Edward Clayton and asked him to spend a week with me to celebrate my inheritance. He came, as I knew he would. We'd been great friends for many years, but for the first 3 days, I was loath to confide in him.
Ah, this could be splendid, Dennis. This room, light, airy. Have to do something with those curtains, of course, but... hello, what's this? Oh, for the love of heaven, don't touch that vase. Oh, why not? What's the... Sit down. I'll tell you. Hmm? Sit down.
I told him everything that had happened since I took possession of the house, but he made little effort to conceal his skepticism.
Oh, Dennis. Come on, man. I mean,
you must take me seriously.
But granting that what you say is true, what... I mean, what the devil does it mean?
I don't know. You read the letter?
Hmm? Oh, yes. It just read it in front of you, didn't I?
Edward, promise me you will not touch that vase.
But that put me in the position of subscribing to your fears.
Please.
All right, promise. Scout's honor. I need beer. Lots of cold beer. Come on, the ghost isn't walking at the moment.
He promised. Oh, yes. But he promised without believing. And perhaps the very promise he made was a challenge. Next day, he seemed unable to concentrate. Twice when I spoke to him, he didn't hear me. He was in a kind of dream, thinking of something else. I knew what it was. I did everything I could to divert his attention. I read him part of my novel, which had come to a full stop. He listened and made some favorable comments. For a while. But I knew I was not holding his attention. He kept wandering about the house, and inevitably his journeying took him by or into the room where the table and the vase upon it had lived for the past 30 years. The thing seems to fascinate you.
Hmm?
The vase.
Vase? Oh, the vase.
You can't take your eyes off it. I've been watching you.
Oh, at first, well, I thought it was a fairy story.
And now?
Well, now I'm not so sure. I wonder.
Don't. Some malignance is associated with that thing. Some bond ties it to something in the attic.
What do you...
I mean, something's linked with it in space or time.
Or in the attic.
Or in the attic, yes.
If you think so, why haven't you been up there to see?
It's locked.
Well,
I couldn't bring myself to break in.
There's no time like the present, then, is there? You game?
I didn't know.
Well, make up your mind. You can't just live here with half-truths. You either find out there's something nasty and horrible around, in which case you move out. Or you find out it's all a silly mistake. Lay the ghost and continue writing your book in peace. And incidentally, I think your book will be very splendid.
Thank you.
So, let's go and see what's up in the attic. Bring the lamp.
All right.
Got the lamp?
Yes.
Coat off, I think. Danger. Men at work. Yep.
Our lamplight flooded the room. In the middle of the attic floor stood a coffin. Just a coffin. Nothing else. Not even a rug was to be seen in that gabled room. The coffin was festooned with spiders' webs, as if it had not been disturbed for decades.
sealed. I take it that this is Stephen Lansford's coffin. His mother had him put here.
I imagine so. Yes. The vase is the one he made in the letter, you remember?
Yes, exactly. Well, yes, I know what you're thinking. It doesn't hold water, Dennis, and you ought to be the first to see it.
Nothing about this thing holds water, as you put it.
Suppose it isn't a bad place to rest. If you were dead, I mean, dry at least. Better than 6 feet under, eh? Don't stare at it like that. Nothing's going to rise up out of it, Dennis.
Isn't it?
No. Ghoulish lot the Lansford there.
Let's get out of here.
Okay. What are you going to do about this room, attic?
I'm going to seal it. Nail it up.
Drink? I need one. This moaning noise you talked about.
Yes?
Care to demonstrate?
All right. Listen.
I'm all ears.
Slowly, I lifted the green vase, half an inch off the table. I replaced the vase.
Interesting.
All right. Now you've heard. Let's have that drink, and then I think I'm ready for bed. Books come to a dead stop at the moment. Do you know what? If nothing happens with the book, I mean, by the time you leave, I'll come back to town for a while. If and when I sell my book, if it's published and makes money, maybe I'll have this place. What are you doing? Put the vase down! I moved towards him, whereupon he lifted the vase high above his head and backed away, grinning madly. Then we heard the attic door beaten down. Then the color drained from Edward Clayton's face.
Take the vase, Dennis! My God! My God!
He dropped the vase and it smashed into 100 pieces, and then the thing was at the door, and the door opened and it was in the room.
Dennis!
I leapt towards the window, and before I crashed through the glass, I half-turned. Something had entered that room beyond my range of sight, for Edward was hanging limply aloft in mid-air.
Here.
Thanks.
So, that's about it then, eh?
That's it. Poor Edward. Poor Edward.
No, steady on. The doctor said you've not to get out of bed. You've had a shock.
Poor Edward. I told him. I did, Sergeant.
Yes. Well, the folks from Burnstrom went up there, and there he was. Just like the others. It was a thing neither you nor any other man could have done. There's one more thing, sir, I'm afraid to have to tell you. They took matters into their own hands. They burned down your house. Took your stuff out first and set fire to the house.
Yes, it's just as well. I couldn't have gone back there.
Funny thing, though. You said the vase was smashed on the floor.
It was.
When we found it, all the broken pieces were piled together, as neat as you please. Smack in the middle of the table.
Past 9.
The last stragglers were leaving Mariner's waxworks. The uniformed attendants, glad that another day's work was over, were locking up. On the second floor of the old grey building, the manager, a stout, blonde man of smart appearance, was talking to one Raymond Hewson, who looked anything but smart. His clothes, although good once, were showing distinct signs of their owners losing battle with the world.
There's nothing new in your request. In fact, we refuse it to many people. Young bloods have often made bets, but we don't play ball. We've nothing to gain and something to lose by letting people spend a night in our murderer's den.
A night in the murderer's den. That's what Raymond Hewson, the man in the shabby clothes, was after. Why? You'll find out. The waxworks. I must earnestly beseech you not to listen to this beyond midnight alone.
Biotex, the new soak and pre-wash powder, presents Beyond Midnight by Michael McCabe.
I had a letter recently from Mrs. V.P., head of 7th Street, Parkmore, Johannesburg, and she said, I cannot fully describe my utter delight on returning to the washing to find the stubborn stains of 2 months' standing completely removed. I am so glad I discovered your product, Biotex. And now Mrs. J. Longman of Cambridge, West East London, wrote to say, just a word of thanks for your new soak and wash powder, Biotex. I find it almost too good to be true. I've just finished my first packet, and I washed all my baby's woolens with it, and they really do stay white. And what is more, they keep their shape so well, too. Once again, thanks for a wonderful product. I'm just hoping you won't wait too long before putting a large economy-size packet on the market. Well, thank you, Mrs. Head of Parkmore, and Mrs. Longman, for your endorsements. I, too, can endorse Biotex by making certain claims to you, ladies, the most important of which is that with Biotex, the stubbornest, the very stubbornest stains just vanish merely by soaking.
Well, we certainly have nothing to gain. If I allowed it and let some young idiot lose his senses, what would be my position? But, of course, your being a journalist somehow, that alters the case.
Well, I suppose you mean that journalists have no senses to lose.
No. But one imagines them to be sensible, responsible people. Besides, here we have something to gain. Publicity and advertisement.
Exactly. And there I thought we might come to terms.
Oh, I know what's coming. You want to be paid twice, do you? It used to be said years ago that Madame Tussauds would give a man £100 for sleeping alone in the Chamber of Horrors. And I hope you don't think we've made any such offer. Now, what's your paper?
Well, I'm freelancing at the moment, working on space for 2 or 3 papers. But, well, I don't think I'll have any trouble in getting this story published. Do you? Morning Echo used it like a shot. A night with Mariner's murderers. No live paper could turn it down.
Now, how do you propose to treat it?
Well, I'll make it gruesome, of course, but with just a saving touch of humour.
I see. All right, Mr. Houston. Get your story published in the Echo, and there's a £5 note waiting for you here when you care to come and call for it. I'd like to be sure about you, though. And I'd like you to be sure about yourself.
Huh?
I must confess that I wouldn't spend the night in Murderer's Den. I've seen those figures dressed and undressed. I know all about their process of manufacture. I can walk about in company downstairs as if I were walking among so many skittles. But I'd hate to sleep alone down there amongst them.
Why?
I don't know. There isn't any reason. I mean, I don't believe in ghosts. Even if I did, I'd expect them to haunt the scenes of their crimes or the place where their bodies were laid, not a cellar which just happens to contain their waxwork effigies. It's just that I couldn't sit alone among them all night. They seem to stare so. Well, after all, they do represent the lowest and most appalling forms of humanity. Now, I wouldn't admit this publicly, of course, but the people who come to see our murderers aren't generally charged with the highest motives themselves. No, the whole atmosphere of the place is unpleasant. And if you're susceptible to atmosphere, I warn you, you're in for a very uncomfortable night.
Well, sir, I'm imaginative, I think. I am probably susceptible to atmosphere, as you put it. But it's a good idea. And I have a wife and family to support. Been a bit unlucky lately in the job stakes, you know. And, well, we're living on my savings, which aren't great. But after all, they are only waxworks, aren't they?
You're not superstitious?
No, I don't think so.
But you just said that you have an imagination. As a journalist, you'd need a reasonably strong one, after all.
The editors I've worked for have often complained I haven't any.
All right. I think the last of the people have gone. Now, wait a minute. I'll give orders that the figures haven't to be draped. I'll let the night people know you're going to be there, too. One condition, I'm afraid, I must impose on you. I must ask you not to smoke. We had a fire scare down in the murderer's den this evening. I don't know who gave the alarm, but whoever it was a false one. Fortunately, there weren't very many people down there at the time, or there might have been a panic. All right. A night with Mariner's murderers you want. A night with Mariner's murderers you shall have.
In the passage at the bottom of the stairs were a few preliminary horrors. A rack taken from a medieval castle, relics of the Inquisition, branding irons, thumbscrews. Beyond was the passage into the murderer's den. The waxworks. Thurtell, the murderer of Weir, stood as if frozen in his diabolical act. Within 5 yards of him sat Mrs. Thompson. There was Lefroy, who killed for gain so that he might ape the gentleman, and Charles Peace, sneering across a gangway at Norman Thorne. Brown and Kennedy, the two most recent additions, stood between Mrs. Dyer and Patrick Mahon.
Oh, no, that's Crippen. I expect you recognize him. Insignificant little beast. Looks as if he couldn't tread on a worm. Oh, there's Armstrong. Looks like a decent, harmless country gentleman, doesn't he? And, of course, who's this? Oh, yes, I was coming to him. He's our star turn. He's the only one of the bunch who hasn't been hanged.
The figure Hewson had indicated was that of a small, slight man, not more than 5 feet in height. It wore little waxed moustaches, large spectacles, and a caped coat. There was something so exaggeratedly French in his appearance
but it reminded Hewson of a stage caricature.
Who is he?
That is Dr. Burdett.
Oh. Don't think I've... somehow the name's familiar, but I forget...
Well, you'd remember better if you were a Frenchman. For some long while, that man was the terror of Paris. He carried on his work of healing by day and of throat-cutting by night, when the fit was on him. He killed for the sheer devilish pleasure it gave him to kill. And always the same way, with a razor. After his last crime, he left a clue behind him which set the police on his track. Now, one clue led to another, and before long they knew they were on the track of the Parisian equivalent of Jack the Ripper. They had enough evidence to send him to the madhouse or the guillotine on a dozen capital charges.
And they caught him then?
No. Our friend was too clever for them. Even then. When he realized the net was closing, he just vanished. Disappeared off the face of the earth. Ever since the police of every civilized country have been searching for him.
Where can he have possibly gone to? I mean, with such a hunt on for him.
There's no doubt about that. Did himself in, obvious. But in such a way that prevented his body coming to light. Now, one or two crimes of a smaller, though similar nature have taken place since he disappeared, but he's believed to be dead. The experts think the crimes, in a sense, are, the actions of imitators.
Look at his eyes.
Yes, that little figure's a masterpiece. You find the eyes bite into you, don't you?
Sort of, yes.
Well, that's excellent realism, then.
What do you mean?
Mesmerism.
Pardon?
Burdett practiced mesmerism. He was supposed to mesmerize his victims before dispatching them.
Oh.
Indeed, had he not done so, it's difficult to believe how so small a man could have done his ghastly work.
He's very small, isn't he? Doesn't look very strong or anything.
Well, there were never any signs of a struggle. There's an armchair here for you, Mr. Hewson. It's the best we can do for you, I'm afraid. I hope you'll be able to get some sleep. Mr. Hewson. Mr. Hewson.
I
thought... Yes?
I thought, just then, I thought I saw the doctor, Burdett. Silly, but... I thought I saw him move.
Keep your home sweet with country fresh atmosphere in every room. Keep Airwick handy. Airwick is the air freshener that actually knocks odors right out of the air. It doesn't just mask them with heavy scent. Airwick is the modern air freshener in economical bottle or a smart aerosol. Get Airwick. It makes breathing a little nicer.
Soak, that's all you have to do. Soak, just for an hour or two you'll find it's look as good as new when you use new Biotex.
With amazing new Biotex, the stubbornest stains will vanish. Yes, vanish clean away. Just by soaking your laundry overnight in cold water, or for an hour or two in warm water, or by pre-washing it quickly in your washing machine. Get amazing new Biotex today.
Imagination. Silly, but... I could have sworn just for a second.
You'll have more than one optical illusion before the night's out, I'm afraid. But you won't be locked in. You can come upstairs when you've had enough of it. There are watchmen on the premises, so you'll find company. But don't be alarmed if you hear them moving about. I'm sorry I can't give you any more light, but all the lights are on. For obvious reasons, we keep the place as gloomy as possible.
Yes.
And now I think you better return with me to the office for a tot of whiskey before your night's vigil,
Yes, well, for a start, I don't think we'll have my armchair facing friend Burdett. I think I like him a lot less than the others.
unwavering light fell on the rows of figures, which were so uncannily like human beings that the stillness and the silence seemed unnatural, ghastly even. Hewson missed the sound of breathing, the rustling of clothes, the 101 minute noises one hears when even the deepest silence has fallen upon a crowd. The air was as stagnant as water at the bottom of a standing pool. Not a breath in the chamber to stir a curtain or rustle a hanging drapery or start a shadow.
Must be like this at the bottom of the sea. Have to work that into the story somehow. Like the bottom of the sea. Sinister lot, I must say. Even Armstrong doesn't look quite such a harmless country gentleman now. Still, there are only waxworks.
All would be well, thought Hewson. Yet somehow, what prevented him most of all from feeling absolutely comfortable was the knowledge that Dr. Burdett was directly behind him. He knew, in fact, that the little Frenchman's waxen stare was directed at the back of his neck. He itched with a desire to turn round.
Come on. My nerves have started already. If I turn and look at that dressed-up dummy, it'll be an admission of funk.
It's because you're afraid that you won't turn and look at him.
Rubbish. Not afraid at all.
Yes, you are.
Rot. Complete and utter rot. Afraid? A lot of waxworks.
Not of a lot of waxworks. Just one. Dr. Burdett.
French fool. Not so healthy now, is he?
Look at his eyes.
Don't want to see his eyes.
All the same, he had to eventually have a quick look round at Dr. Burdett.
Only a waxwork like the rest of them. They're all only waxworks.
All the same, he took another quick look behind him. Now, it did not worry Hewson too much, because it was, after all, only his imagination, but there seemed to be a subtle change in the grouping of the figures around Dr. Burdett. Or was it Dr. Burdett himself? Looking to the front of him, he looked at Crippen. Again, he had the slight feeling that something, somewhere, was a bit different. Crippen seemed, for instance, to have turned 1 degree to the left.
I must have moved my chair a bit. Not Crippen. It was me who moved.
And just then, the waxwork of grey moved a hand. At least Hewson thought the hand moved. Just for his own peace of mind, Raymond Hewson gave the waxen figure a little poke. Wax. No more, no less. Lifeless, lifelike wax.
They tell me, the editors, I've no imagination. Better make some notes. Yeah. Deathly silence. Yeah. Unearthly stillness of the figures.
And then he turned suddenly and looked over his right shoulder. He had neither seen nor heard a movement, but it was as if some sixth sense had made him aware of one. He looked straight into the vapid countenance of Lefroy, which smiled vacantly back as if to say,
"It wasn't I."
Of course it wasn't you. Wasn't any of you.
And then he looked back, and Crippen seemed to have shifted his position slightly.
Can't trust that little beggar. Can't trust any of them. Once you take your eyes off them, they move. Not good enough, this isn't. I reckon I'm going. Not going to spend a night with a lot of waxworks who move when you aren't looking at them. Houston, please. They can't move. What are you thinking of?
He encountered the mild, baleful stare of Burdett.
Almost got you that time, Crippen. All the rest of you, too. If I do see one of you move, I'll smash you to pieces. Smash you! Experienced enough already to write my story. 10 stories for that matter. Yeah. Morning echo. Wouldn't know how long I'd stayed if I cleared out now. As long as the story's good. Yes. That watchman up there. He'd pull my leg all right. And perhaps the manager wouldn't give me the $5 or $2. Find out all right how long I was here from the watchman. Rose will laugh about this, I tell her. You asleep, Rose girl, or awake thinking of me? Can't have Rose laughing at me. Kids will pull my leg too. Yeah. I think worse than having someone's breathing. Someone was breathing. Well, it wasn't me. They knew I was listening then, and then they stopped. Yeah, yes, they did. This is too much. Bad enough when they move, when I'm not looking. But I'm not having the beggars breathing, too. No, it won't do. I am Raymond Hewson, unsuccessful journalist, but a living and breathing man. And these figures grouped around me are only dummies. Dummies! Yeah. What does it matter if they're lifelike? Wax and sawdust for the entertainment of morbid sightseers and orange-sucking tourists. Ha!
Then the gaze of Dr. Burdett urged, challenged, and finally compelled him to turn.
Huh?
Hewson stared into those dreadful, hypnotic eyes. His own eyes were dilated, and his mouth, at first set into a grin of terror, lifted at the corners into a snarl.
You moved, blast it. Yes, you did. I saw you. I saw you. Good evening.
Dr. Burdett's movements were quite leisurely. He stepped off his pedestal with the mincing movements of a lady alighting from a bus.
I need hardly tell you that not until I overheard the conversation between yourself and the worthy manager of this establishment did I suspect that I should have the pleasure of a companion here for the night. You cannot move or speak without my bidding, but you can hear perfectly well. Something tells me that you are, shall I say, nervous? My dear sir, no illusions. I am not one of these contemptible little effigies suddenly come to life. I am Dr. Burdett himself. Pardon me, but I'm a little stiff. Let me explain. Circumstances with which I need not fatigue you have made it desirable that I should live in England. I was close to the building this evening when I saw a policeman regarding me, thought too curiously. I guessed that he intended to follow me and perhaps ask embarrassing questions, so I mingled with the crowd and came in here. Inspiration showed me a certain means of escape. I raised a cry of fire, and when all the fools had rushed to the stairs, I stripped my effigy of the caped coat, which you may all be wearing, donned it, hid my effigy behind the platform at the back there, and took its place on the pedestal. I own I have spent a most fatiguing evening. The world is divided into collectors and non-collectors. The collectors collect anything according to their own individual tastes. I collect throats.
And the doctor regarded Hewson's throat with interest mingled with disfavor.
My activities of late have been curtailed. I am glad, though, of the present opportunity of gratifying my somewhat unusual whim. I should never have selected you from choice, of course. No, I like men with thick necks. Thick red necks. This is a little French razor. The blade, you will observe, is very narrow. It does not cut very deep, but deep enough. In just one little moment, you shall see for yourself. I shall ask you the little civil question of all polite barbers. Does the razor suit you, sir? You will have the goodness to raise your chin a little. Thank you. And a little more, just a little more. Thank you. Merci, monsieur. Merci. Merci.
Over one end of the chamber was a thick skylight of frosted glass, which, by day, let in a few sickly and filtered rays from the floor above. After sunrise, these began to mingle with the subdued light from the electric bulbs, and this mingled illumination added a certain ghastliness to a scene which needed no additional touch of horror. The waxwork figures stood apathetically in their places, waiting to be admired by the crowds who would presently wander fearfully among them. In their midst, in the center gangway, Hewson sat still, leaning far back in his armchair. His chin was up-tilted, as if he were expecting to receive attention from a barber, and although there was not a scratch upon his throat, nor indeed anywhere upon his whole body, he was cold and quite dead. His previous employers were wrong in having him credited with no imagination. Dr. Baudet, on his pedestal, watched the dead man unemotionally. He did not move, nor was he capable of motion. But then, after all, he was only a waxwork.